today title is why not? Why not? Like when you say why not in English, it's like a mainly primarily two different ways that we can say like, hey, would you like to, let's say, Hannah, would you like to go out for dinner? I said, why not? Right? So, yeah, sure, of course, right? And then the other one is, Hannah, would you like to go bungee jumping? No, are you crazy? And she was, then I was like, why not? Why don't you want to come with me? It's going to be fun, right? So those are the two major way of using it. That's kind of slightly different. One is like, yeah, sure. And then the other one's like trying to persuade you to join me, right? So there are two major different ways to say why not. So today's message title is why not? Why don't you join me? So as you can see, like when you read the Bible passage today, it's what? Like what are we talking? Jesus and his disciples on the boat. They are in where? Where were they? Sea of Galilee, right? Sea of Galilee. But that's not actually a sea, it's a lake. More of a lake, right? So this one is not a Sea of Galilee. It's Okanagan Lake in Canada, where my family came from. We came from Okanagan area. So this is Okanagan Lake, that's the map. So Okanagan Lake in BC, Canada, is like a length of 135 kilometers. 135 kilometers. It's a long lake. Width, like between the lake, they're usually about 4 to 5 kilometers. If you want to cross it by swimming, that's like 4 to 5 kilometers that you have to swim. That deepest part is 232 meters underwater. It's like oceans, right? And average depth, usually in general, average depth is 76 meters deep. And shore length, these ones are shore, right? Like around the lake, it's 270 kilometers shore length. Okay, that's a big lake. Now, I know there's in Canada there's a great Canadian lake and one in Ontario, right? And that's one of the biggest lake. And people say, if we pick up South Korea and drop in the Great Canadian Lake, you cannot find the South Korea in that lake. That's how big that lake is. But this is not that lake. This is a different one. Reason why I picked this one, this has a very similar context to the Sea of Galilee that we are going to talk about today. So, how big this lake is? Do you know like a 62 foot long boat that's like 19 meter long? I don't know how big is 19 meter. Is that like from this end to all the way to that end? Probably 19 meter long. Boat sunk last year in the Okanagan Lake and they could not find it. And they still cannot find it. So that's how deep that it is and how big the lake is. This lake is constantly moving. There are many people have drowned in this lake and they could not find their body. They couldn't. So this lake is not a joke. And look at this. Mountain behind, it's like Hawaii, isn't it? Like people surfing. No, this is a lake. This is same like an Okanagan Lake. How could that be? Surfing, you can only surf in the ocean. Why? Because there's a wave. Right? If you don't have wave, you can't surf, correct? But you can surf here in Okanagan Lake. Why? When there is wind, there's waves in the lake. There's not a small waves, big waves actually, that people can actually surf on. If there's no wind, what do the people do? They drive boat and people surf behind the boat, because behind the boat there is always a wave, right? So now this is the Sea of Galilee. Look quite similar, isn't it? If you look at this one, this picture is Israel, Sea of Galilee. So, and when you look at the length of the Sea of Galilee from the tip of lake to the tip of the lake is about 21 kilometers, not as big as Okanagan Lake. The width is 13 kilometers from there. Matawa to here, like Georgia, is about, let's say, 13 kilometers. Depth is 43 meters. deepest part, 43 meters. So it's not as big, not as deep or big and wide as the Okinawa Lake that we can. Okay, the interesting part is this. The Sea of Galilee, which is Galilee Lake, is in the Jordan Rift Valley. It's right in the valley. Okay? Right? It looks similar, isn't it? When you look at it. This one's Okanagan Lake is in the Okanagan Valley. What's the common? Both of them are in a valley. When lake is in the valley, there's always wind. There's turbulence of wind. All of a sudden, this gush of wind starts blowing and creates wave. That wave is not a small wave. In the Okanagan Lake, when there's a wave, nobody gets on the boat and go out of the lake. Why? Because the water is too rough. No one does that, other than people want to go surf. Right? So interesting. It's quite interesting. So in the passage today, Jesus sent disciples to other side, and they ended up getting to the Gennesaret Valley. Bible doesn't really talk about where they were 5,000 people being fed, and then where they came from. A lot of people talking about Bethania, Jubilee to here, or some people say Tiberias to Gennesaret, or some says Bethania to Galilee. The bottom line is this. It doesn't really matter. The longest part is 13 kilometers by boat, right? So even if they were here to there, maybe it's 10 kilometers. Going through the boat might be much faster because it's only 10 kilometers. If you're walking, you're talking 50 to 20 kilometers, much slower. So that's why Jesus and his disciples was on the boat, start moving. Right? And I don't know if you catch that. And all of a sudden, Jesus started wrapping up all his disciples. Guys, you gotta go. Okay, where do you go? Where do we go? Okay, you gotta go to the other side. It almost seemed like Jesus had a plan. He had to do certain things. Otherwise, why would Jesus rush them, hurry his disciple to send them to the other side? Because he had a plan. What was his plan? His plan was to spend time with his Heavenly Father. His plan was to pray and seek the Lord. Right? And this scripture says, time spent in prayer is never wasted. At times, as a Christian, the body of Christ, it is hard for us to spend time in prayer, right? Because why? Because we're always too busy. I don't know if you guys know John Wesley. He's one of the greatest. He's Methodist. He's founder of Methodist denomination, John Wesley. He says, "Look, I'm too busy. That's why I have to spend a lot of time praying." Are you too busy to pray? If you're really busy, you gotta spend some time in prayer. Jesus was super busy, but he knew he had to spend time in prayer. We have to have a plan that includes that we spend time with the Lord on a daily basis. Without that, it is almost impossible for us to get through our day, our week, our month, and year. It is great that we have our own plan, but do you have God in that plan? That is a big question that I want to try. And I spoke at the Yo-Yo Sundong Church in 성파교회. I don't know, last Friday and Saturday, and they had a young adult and college kids retreat there, and we didn't have a lot of kids just because of the COVID and the restriction. You have only limited people can come into the sanctuary, right? So, but one thing that I was really impressed, and my voice is a little bit, touch and go right now because of the. I spoke about 8 hours. And I led prayers and stuff. So one thing that I was really impressed was that actually college kids, they prayed. they were down on their knee and praying and seeking God as we enter into the time of prayer. That really impressed me. And I wanted to give everything that I had to them, so hoping that God will transform their life and change their thinking and mind in a way, right? And do you have that in your plan, in your daily plan? Do you have a plan that you include God in there, praying or reading the scriptures? And that is critically important. The fourth watch, in Korean, I think it says 사경. In the fourth watch, right? Fourth watch, what's fourth watch? And the fourth watch is between 3 in the morning to 6 in the morning. Okay? So this is a fourth watch of Israel, actually. I had to Google it out, and I spent quite a bit of time trying to find timeline. So early in the morning, right? They were on the boat only 10 kilometers. Before, like when they left the lake, they had to get on the boat and go to the other side. That was in the evening. Evening means in English, at least in English, it's about 5, 6 p.m. So sunrise is 6:30. Sundown in Israel is 5:15. So Jesus put them on the boat before sundown, and they were still in the lake. They were paddling like nearly 10 hours to cross the other side. That is exhausting. If it's a 10-kilometer walk, it should take only 2.5 hours. If you're going by boat, it would be much faster, right? No, they were on the water for 10 hours. Oh my goodness gracious. Have you guys been canoeing before? Have you had a canoe? Like a paddling canoeing? I know Hannah, our kids have done it. Canoeing, if you go on a lake and start canoeing, it's paddling, right? If you do it for an hour or two, it's tired. You get really tired, right? If you do 30-minute paddling all by yourself, it's super tired. These guys have been doing it for 10 hours. I felt for them. Like, oh my goodness gracious. They must have been dead by then, right? So, and as they were super tired, water's rough, like winds blowing, the waves high, and all of a sudden you see somebody walking on the water. I mean, you see like there's some kind of human figures walking towards you on the water, and dark and tired. They all thought, there's a ghost, right? Not this kind of cute ghost, but like a scary ghost. I couldn't put the scary pictures in because we have the little ones, right? So, but I found it very interesting. As a body of Christ in these days, we don't like to talk about a spiritual thing, right? But the Bible clearly talks about there is an evil spirit and going into pig and going to possessing people. But not only just the evil spirit that possesses people, but also there is spirit or evil spirit that actually can be seen by human eyes. We're talking 12 disciples, Jesus' disciples. They have spent a number of time, they've seen miracles and wonders because of Jesus Christ. We're talking Jesus' disciples. They all thought Jesus was ghost, which means there is spiritual being that we can actually, human eyes can see it, but we don't really talk about it. And that is not my topic today, so I'm going to move on. So I just want to bring awareness to there is spiritual being that people can actually see with your eyes. It's real. Okay. Then all of a sudden, Jesus says, don't be afraid, you silly kids. This is I am the Lord Jesus Christ. And how did you know it's Jesus? Because they thought it was a ghost, right? Is it really you or is this a ghost? Is it ghost talking or is Jesus talking? These days, nobody talks on the phone. Like, I asked the college kids the other day, so, do you guys ever talk on the phone? No, we text. Well, you text each other when you're sitting beside each other, right? Yeah, we just text each other. So we don't have to talk. No, so when we used to talking on the phone, like when I was a kid and my mom called me from the outside, I picked up the phone and she immediately knew that was me. So as soon as I picked up, I said, hello, oh, Enoch, can I talk to your brother? How do you know it's me? How do you know like it's not my, I'm so and so? Because I know your voice. And the next day, interesting enough, really next day, people that I know personally quite well, and their family and our family was quite close together. And the lady called, and I picked up, hello, and said, oh, this is so and so. No, that's my brother. I'm a younger one. Oh, your voice is just like him. Reason why I'm saying this, if you're not being familiar with the Lord's voice, you're not going to be able to recognize it. If you know His voice, if we hear it, we know it. Disciples they understood what the Jesus' voice was like. It is critical, important for all of us to understand how to hear the voice of God, so we can recognize His voice. Right? Of course, it takes time to recognize Jesus' voice, but at the same time, we need to constantly practice listening. Otherwise, we can't really hear it. And that is not my topic either. Okay. There's way too many things that I want to talk about in this passage. This is driving me nuts. So this is one thing that I really want to talk about today. There's only one point for you guys to take home today. When Jesus asked, when Peter saw, Jesus, are you sure is that you? Jesus said, yes, this is I. If that is really you, I wanted to ask him to walk on the water. I wanted to ask him to walk on the water. And Jesus said, come on, walk on the water. Walk on the water. Have you guys tried it? Have you guys ever tried to walk on the water? I did. I go to swimming pool, like I ain't gonna walk on the water. In Jesus' name, I just sunk right in. It didn't work. So I ran really fast. And the moment I touched the water on my feet, like I was in the water. Not on the water. I was in the water. It didn't work, but I keep on trying. Maybe one day I can walk a few steps. You never know, right? Peter did. So I want to try. So I've been trying it and hasn't been success. I hadn't had a chance to actually walk on it. But this is the thing. When Peter asked Jesus, can I walk on the water? Like, can you tell me to walk on the water? Yeah, sure. Come on. Come on. He walked. I don't know how far he walked away from the road. I don't know. Maybe he walked like 4 steps, 5 steps, 10 steps. It doesn't really matter how many steps he walked. But he eventually sunk. And we often think Peter was sinking very slowly, right? With slow motions. Have you jumped in the water? Was it sinking slowly or really fast? Well, when people are sinking in the water, there are 2 different ways that we can say it. One, you can think of it slowly sinking down, which is like it's almost in the movie, which is possible. I'm not saying it's impossible. But when you're in the water, you're still sinking under the water, deep down. So my guess is that when he started sinking, he was in the water and putting his hands up, Jesus, save me. So this is a perspective from Peter. Oh, Peter. As he was sinking under the water, save me. And Jesus reached his hand out and pulled him up. Okay. And this is a very important part I do want to talk about. And Jesus pulled him up, and their words started to walking towards the Lord. Here's the question. I don't have chocolate, or I don't have a reward for this one, but here's the question. When Jesus and Peter started walking on the water, was the wind died down, or nor the wave, or was still there? Was wind and wave were still there, or was wind and wave died down? Yes, Sarah. It was still there. It was still there. It's interesting. When Jesus was asking Peter to walk on the water, the wave and wind were still there. Wave and winds were still there. When Jesus asked us to do certain things, when Jesus was asking us to obey His word, it doesn't mean that our circumstances are going to change. doesn't mean our circumstances will change. The wind and waves still going to be there. It's going to be challenging. It's going to be difficult. It's hard. Not changes it a lot of times. Following Jesus Christ doesn't necessarily mean that we are going to walk on a highway or we're going to drive an Audi and the Autobahn in Germany. Like we can just zip it ourselves like a highway. It's not like that. There's a lot of obstacles that's going to be ahead of us. The wind will never die down, nor the wave. Sometimes I do feel like this. I don't know if you guys do, but yeah. I'm trying to hold on to save my life, and the wind is constantly trying to take me away from the Lord, right? But this is what I found that's really interesting. Even though there's a tough time and difficulties and wind and waves are still there, but Jesus says this, I've got your back. I've got your back. Your circumstance may not have changed. Your difficulty may have not disappeared, but I have your back. That's what Jesus says. I have your back. Peter was going under the water when he was obeying Jesus. He walked in the water, but he eventually starts sinking. But when Jesus was there with him, the wave, the wind was still so hard. Circumstance didn't change. Peter obeyed. Circumstance didn't change. But he had Jesus with him. Jesus had his back. They were walking on the water that are very rough. The wind that's constantly blowing. In our lives, there are so many moments in time that's not easy for us. Just because we simply obey Jesus Christ and His word and His commandment, right? We just went to the Lunar holiday, Lunar New Year. Good job, right? And a lot of Christians that I'm constantly hearing this from the different group of believers. Like, yeah, I went to my family's home, and half of my family they don't believe in God, and it's so hard. Yeah, it doesn't mean that it's not. Yeah, it's just because you begin being a Christian doesn't mean that your whole family is going to change and transform. Okay, my brother used to go to church, and he doesn't. His wife, she doesn't believe in Jesus, right? So I have been asked a lot of different questions. Basically saying is, why do you live your life such a way? Why are you wasting your gifts and talents and your brain and your ability, whatever you want to call it? Why are you wasting it? Right? Does our circumstance change? It didn't. No, it didn't. It's still there. But was I shaking? Was I moving? Was I like sinking under the water? No, it didn't. Because it didn't really affect me anything. Because I had a Jesus in my back. He got my back. Some of us might be going through tough times and difficult times at this moment, especially during this COVID pandemic. And there's still so many different restrictions, so many difficulties constantly at us. It's like a wave. But Jesus says, "No, I've got your back. I've got your back. Trust me. Take step of faith. Take a step of faith." Jesus says this. Can you guys see this one? Oh man, you can't see this one. This is one of my favorite movies, Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones was actually Holy Grail. Do you guys know the title Holy Grail? I don't know the title in Korean, so sorry. Holy Grail. He was trying to find the cup that Jesus drank his wine out of it at our Last Supper. So he was trying to. You see this small hole there? He was trying to find the Holy Grail, and it's almost there, and there's no road. There's no bridge. Oh, if I can get there, there is Holy Grail that I can grab the treasure. Right? And Indiana Jones says, like, and there's no way that I can cross. There's nothing. And up there, there's nothing that you can hang your rope or anything. And all of a sudden, he remembered, walk by faith, not by sight. Scriptures, right? And he's all of a sudden remembered. He grabbed the sand and threw it at the empty space. What happened? He saw a glimpse of road there. And it's still scary. You don't know how wide and how long they are. Those ones are right. And he took a step of faith. Step of faith. When you look at that screen, it's nothing under there. Literally, it feels like if you miss steps, you're down to the pit of the valley. Basically, that net. That's what Jesus is saying to us today. Take a step of faith. I got you back. I got you back. I got you back. Is the Lord asking you to do certain things today? Is the Lord asking you to take a step of faith? I don't know, whatever that it is. We all might have something else, something different, right? My family has different faith journey than our pastor, Jang-Choong came here. We all do. We all do. Not one person's faith is bigger than the other. We all have different journey of our faith in the walk with the Lord. But there's one common kind of question that's being asked by the Lord, saying, would you take a step of faith with me? Would you take a step of faith with me? Here's the answer that we should do. Why not? Why not? Because it feels like it's scary, right? Just like I asked Hannah a question, Hannah, would you go bungee jumping with me? No, it's scary. I love doing those kind of stuff, but yeah, not everybody is, right? But Jesus says, would you take a step of faith? You might not see it, you feel like it's very scary, but would you take a step of faith? And your answer, I'm hoping that is why not? Why not? I'd love to take a step of faith. I'd love to take a step of faith. Let's jump in. Let's jump in with Jesus. Because He's got your back. And He's got my back. He's got our back. Let's take a moment of silence here a little bit. And hear the voice, quiet, still voice from the Lord. If the Lord asking you to do certain thing today, tomorrow, this month, next month, and this year, and I like you to answer Him. Why not? Why not? Let's just take it. Father, sometimes it is scary for us to take a step of faith or live of faith. But I know through our passage today, we realize that you got our back. The wind, wave, our circumstances, difficulties, and toughness of our life may have not changed, but there's one thing that's very different. That we never had your back on us, but now you've got our back. You've got our back. So Father God, when you ask us, help us to take a step of faith. Help us to answer you. Why not? Because that is critically important to us. To journey that is ahead of us. Because we know that when you have our back, there's nothing can stop us, nothing can shake us. When you don't have our back, we sink. We sink just like a pyramid. But when you have our back, we don't. So Father, when you ask us to do certain things, help us to see why not. Yes. In Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you and have a great rest of the day.